Okay, so you ever walk into a room and just, like, feel it? That wave of
Oh,
weirdness?
tell me about it.
Like everyone's looking at you sideways,
Yeah.
judging, your outfit, your hair,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're back in high school or something.
It's like our brains are hardwired for that kind of social anxiety.
Right, totally. And it's so easy to just, internalize it all. But what if I told you there's, like, a method to the madness?
Okay, I'm listening.
So today, we're diving into Assured, this book that really digs into those feelings of jealousy and insecurity we all deal with, and it actually gives you tools to deal with them.
And what's really interesting is how the book gets into the psychology of it all.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's not even really about you most of the time. It's
Mm.
the other person, their own insecurities bubbling up.
That whole "it's not about you" thing, it really hit me in chapter 1. The author talks about starting a new job and feeling totally out of place. Like everyone else already has their little clique,
Oh, I've been there.
and you just feel like you're the problem.
You think, oh, it must be me. Yeah. But chapter 2 really flips that script. It explains how when someone's acting jealous, it's often because they see something in you they feel like they're lacking.
Mhm.
You're a threat, basically, in their mind at least.
Wow. Makes sense, but I don't know. My gut usually knows when something's off, even before my brain catches up.
Right.
Thankfully, chapter 3 is all about trusting that intuition.
Absolutely. Those little cues, the backhanded compliments, being left out of conversations, your body picks up on that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't ignore it. It's usually trying to tell you something.
So then how do you figure out what those signals mean? Is this person actually concerned, or are they just envious? And speaking of envy, chapter 4 really breaks down the difference between envy and jealousy. I'll admit, I used to think they were the same thing.
It's an important difference. Helps you react to those feelings, whether it's you feeling them or someone else.
Okay, so what is it?
So envy is like you want your neighbor's fancy car, you covet what they have. Jealousy is more like your best friend starts dating your ex.
Ooh.
You're scared of losing something. One's about lack, the other's about loss.
That's a really good way to put it. Then chapter 5 comes along, and the title kind of threw me. Pretty. What a pity. It's like,
Right. You'd think being attractive is all great, right?
yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Well, the book talks about how, for women especially, it's not always easy. It can attract envy, unrealistic expectations.
Oh, for sure.
People don't take you seriously.
It's like this pressure cooker of expectations, and nobody even talks about it.
And it's not like you can just, ignore it.
Exactly. And all of that feeds into this, like, vicious cycle. Speaking of cycles, let's talk about work, because that's where things get really messy.
The worst.
Chapter 6 goes deep on imposter syndrome, that feeling of not being good enough.
Oh, we've all been there. That little voice in your head.
Right, even when you're killing it.
Yeah.
You still feel like a fraud.
And the book ties that right back to, you guessed it, jealousy and insecurity. We start comparing ourselves, and of course, it's never to the person who's slacking off.
I was a superstar, right? Like, ugh, why can't I be more like them?
Exactly. And then we just focus on our weaknesses, never our strengths.
It's exhausting. So how do we make it stop? Any advice on silencing those negative thoughts?
Well, chapter 7 has this interesting idea. Acting as if.
As if. Like, I'm suddenly a CEO.
No. It's not about being fake. It's more like embodying the traits of the confident person you want to be.
Okay, so say I have to give a presentation, and I'm terrified.
Right. You walk in there like you're a TED Talk rock star, head held high.
Fake it till you make it.
Kind of, but the book talks about how if you do it enough, your brain actually starts to believe it.
Wow, that's pretty wild. So we trick ourselves into confidence.
Exactly. You rewire your brain. It's pretty amazing. And speaking of amazing, chapter 8 is all about collaboration over competition, especially for women.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, I think women are often like pitted against each other, right? From a young age, it's like, oh, there can only be one.
Ugh, the worst.
But chapter 8 is like, what if we ditched that whole script? What if women supported each other instead?
So much better. There's power in numbers.
Right, exactly. We can lift each other up, achieve so much more.
Love that. But even with a good support system, I mean, disagreements happen.
Oh, for sure. Conflict is inevitable.
So then what?
It's about how you handle it. Chapter 9 has this great tool, the sandwich method, for giving criticism.
Like a compliment sandwich. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So instead of just being blunt like, hey, your report was late, which nobody likes to hear.
No, not at all.
You say something positive first, like, I really appreciate all the insights in your report, especially that part about, and you mentioned a specific detail.
Okay, so you start positive.
Right. Then you slip in the criticism, just so you know the deadline was yesterday, and then you end on a good note, too. Let's sync up about deadlines going forward.
So it's like the criticism is the meat of the sandwich,
Yeah.
but you surround it with nice, fluffy bread.
Exactly. Makes it easier to swallow, right?
Totally. Much better than just, like, getting slapped with a big old piece of dry bread. Nobody wants that.
And then chapter 10, this is key, it talks about documentation.
Documentation.
Yeah.
Like at work.
Yeah. It might sound boring, but honestly, it's a lifesaver. Trust me on this one.
Okay, I'm trusting you. So, like, if I have a problem with a coworker or
Especially
something,
with your boss, it's all about protecting yourself. Right, just in case.
so always have that paper trail just in case things go sideways.
Exactly. Because sometimes, like, a polite conversation isn't enough. Sad but true. It's not that you don't trust anyone, but...
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then, what about those situations where, like, it's just bad? A toxic workplace, the kind you dread going to every morning?
Ugh, the worst. Tell me Assured has some wisdom for us on that.
It's chapter 11 doesn't mess around. It's like, okay, sometimes you just gotta walk away.
Easier said than done, though.
Oh, for sure. But the book really stresses how important it is to put yourself first.
But what about the whole, like, financial aspect? What if I need the job?
And that's where chapter 12 is so powerful. It talks about financial independence, like having that emergency fund.
So you're not trapped.
Exactly. If you have that cushion, you have options. It's super empowering. And then chapter 13 reminds us, you don't have to go through it alone.
Oh, right, like asking for help?
Yeah. Talk to someone, a mentor, a therapist, your friends. Assured, even. It helps to remember that everyone feels this stuff sometimes.
It's so easy to just, like, isolate yourself, though.
It is, but reaching out makes a huge difference. So as we wrap up this deep dive, any big takeaways for our listeners?
Well, first of all, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And don't be afraid to set boundaries. Those are important.
Yeah, you deserve to be treated with respect. At work, in your relationships, everywhere.
And don't get stuck in that comparison trap. You're on your own path, right? Celebrate your wins.
Exactly. And if those feelings of jealousy or insecurity pop up, don't beat yourself up. Just, acknowledge them. Figure out what they're trying to tell you. And then make the choice to respond in a way that lifts you UP, not down.
Ooh, I like that. It's all about making choices that empower you. Great advice.
And the book ends with this great question. I want to leave you all with it. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Think about that. Let that guide you.
I love that. So much to think about. Thanks for diving into Assured with me today.
Absolutely. This was great.